At this point, Joel and Ellie's relationship, Ellie knows that Joel lied. And not only that, he's killed the people that could have saved humanity. And that weighs on her. And also at this point, she hasn't met anybody else that's immune, or at least they haven't told her. So she also carries the weight of knowing that her death could have saved people. And knowing something that huge could have been your contribution to the world. I mean, how would you even find your purpose in anything else? Because you're like, well, if that was my purpose, everything else feels less than. But that chance was taken away from her, and it's a confusing thing, and it's a confusing emotion because she's also dealing with the fact that Joel wanted to save her because he loves her, and they connected and they became family because of this journey that they were on together. And she knows that, but it's intensely confusing. And I can't even imagine what it would be like to have that responsibility of, well, the world wouldn't be like this anymore if I'd given my life. But I believe, at least how I was playing it throughout this game, is she carries that guilt with her, always. And that kind of guilt can rip you apart. It can make you angry and sad and frustrated and can cause anxiety and depression. Just say it. Joel.
Making a vaccine would have killed you. So I stopped them.
Oh my God. Don't you fucking touch me! I'll go back. But we're done. It's what sets off the journey. And I think when I first heard that Ellie was going to be there for that, I didn't want that for her. But at the same time, I knew that that's what needed to happen for the story. And we all knew that it was going to be heartbreaking and horrible for Ellie to see that. I think I just personally, for me, I was like, I don't want to do that. Which I think is exactly why they needed to do it.
Neil jokes about the fact that we debated how this happens. And I was so fearful of how this would be presented. And I remember sitting in Neil's office on the couch next to him, and he starts telling me how this whole thing goes down with Neil. And I think I told this the first time. I'm sitting there with notes and I'm diligently taking notes. I'm like, okay, fantastic. So, trying to be a dutiful student. And then we get to the moment. And we kind of moved forward, and I just stopped. And I was like, man, I need a second. Because it was literally as if someone just told me that someone very near to me had just died. And I realized that I hadn't grieved. It's almost like finding out someone is terminally ill, and you go through that process, and you're like, okay, we know this is going to happen, and we prepare for it, and you go from like, maybe you won't, maybe this is all a bad dream, and maybe you'll get better, and then you're like, no, you're in hospice, and you're shooting the scene, and then it's done.
Tommy and Joel save Abby's life. What would they have needed to do to prevent Abby from killing Joel in that moment? Like, that's her life's mission, is to go kill this human being, who then the only reason she's allowed to accomplish that singular focus is because he saves her. Like,
Dude, okay. This is why this game, and I'm not saying the first one or the second one, I'm saying this experience, that's why it's part one and part two. It's not a sequel. This thing is the entirety of the story that we're telling. Moments and conversations and characters echo from part one into part two. And it was even one of the earliest lines that you ever heard from part one in the trailer, which was Earl Brown. When you get to Bill's town, and there's this conversation with Bill, and he goes, "Once upon a time, I had someone that I cared about, and I found that thing is only good for one thing, that's to get you killed. This is what happens when you care." And it's the same thing of why it is calling back to Sarah without him having to reference Sarah. It was like, because you didn't care, because you weren't diligent, because you weren't aware, people will get hurt. And you can't care about people because they will die. And when they die, you will be hurt. So you don't care. So you see Joel saying, that's why he rejects Ellie in the very beginning. It's like, I'm not taking her. I'm not taking, she's just cargo. This is how we can rationalize if something goes wrong, it's just cargo. Worst case scenario, the cargo gets lost. Worst case scenario, the cargo dies. And that's how Joel justifies it to himself. There's this constant reminder to Joel of every time I care, every time I show my humanity, it catches up to me. But it's the same question that is asked and posited philosophically at the end of the first game. Why not just sacrifice Ellie for the sake of mankind? This is a philosophical argument. That's the cable car argument. The degrees of tragedy and depravity that we will allow ourselves to indulge in is completely dependent upon the context of our own experiences. For Joel, sacrificing her is sacrificing humanity. So to not care about someone is just as bad as being a murderer. Now he understands. Now he is working. He's trying to do everything he can to make penance for the wrong that he did to Ellie. And that man is making his bed up. He's doing the dishes. He's taking out the garbage. He's doing everything he can. I'll save this person's life if it makes me right with her. I'd rather make a wrong decision, but show that I've grown. And that's why he's like, it's you. You're the one that takes me down. It's just, it was this moment of recognition of like, that's when the other shoe drops. When he starts looking around and realizes, I let my guard down and I don't know my exit and I'm surrounded.
I think that is a huge breaking point for her. He held sort of this important place in her life, possibly the most important, and he was taken away from her. Taken away before their relationship was fully able to heal. And those are all of the emotions that Ellie sits with in for most of the game. And man, shooting was tough. This game was really tough to shoot. And it was a lot harder working on this game than the first game. And we had to go there. We had to go deep and we had to really dive into that or else the game wouldn't work. But it does take a little bit of an emotional toll. It wasn't, but again, I would do it all over again. I love this game so much and I love this character. And after 8 years of playing this character, I'll go anywhere with her.
Joel, please get up! I'll fucking kill you!
Man, that scene, I think I'm getting emotional. I think I was dreading shooting that scene. And It's the scene in the game that is the most devastating, of course, because we are losing a character that we all deeply care about. But when we started shooting that scene, it was awful. Like I didn't want it to be happening, and I know that was the story, but it was a tough week on the job. And it's hard to describe because I feel like that particular week of filming, I was in some ways on autopilot because I was just kind of trying to protect my emotions in a weird way. But at the same time, as an actor, you have to let all that out. And I didn't know what my reactions were going to be. I mean, obviously the scene called for yelling and being upset and crying, but I didn't realize how much anger was going to be coming out. And, obviously had to be restrained. I was like, you guys better be restraining me because I'm going to fucking get up and I'm going to go try to do something if you don't hold me down. And I think that was incredibly helpful because you can hear the strain. Boy, that was a tough day.
I'm reminded of what Neil told me with this scene with Sarah is just look at her. And I was compelled to look at Ashley. So similarly, in the way that Hannah really shepherded me and pulled me through that scene with Sarah, I would say that if that moment is impactful and means something to anybody, it's entirely because Ashley pulled me through that scene.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
Yeah. I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I'd like that.